This is the president breaking quarantine Sunday in a sealed SUV with Secret Service agents in tow to thank his supporters who had gathered outside the hospital but against public health protocols, prompting serious concerns for the health of his security detail. This tweet from Dr. James Phillips, an attending physician at Walter Reed, calling the move astoundingly irresponsible as the president's SUV is hermetically sealed against a chemical attack, making the risk of COVID transmission high.
We're getting great reports from the doctors. This is an incredible hospital, Walter Reed. The work they do is just absolutely amazing, and I want to thank them all, the nurses, the doctors, everybody here. I've also gotten to meet some of the soldiers and the first responders, and what a group.
This followed a briefing earlier given by his medical team that confirmed reports that the president received supplemental oxygen twice and remained on a cocktail of experimental antiviral therapy, including the steroid dexamethasone used for severe or critical COVID cases.
The president yesterday evening completed his second dose of remdesivir. He's tolerated that infusion well. We've been monitoring for any potential side effects, and he has had none that we can tell. His liver and kidney function have remained normal, and we continue to plan to use a 5-day course of remdesivir. In response to transient low oxygen levels, as Dr. Conley has discussed, we did initiate dexamethasone therapy, and he received his first dose of that yesterday, and our plan is to continue that for the time being. Today he feels well. He's been up and around. Our plan for today is to have him to eat and drink, be up out of bed as much as possible, to be mobile. And if he continues to look and feel as well as he does today, our hope is that we can plan for a discharge as early as tomorrow to the White House where he can continue his treatment course.
Doctors have warned that days 7 to 10 in the course of this treatment are usually the most important days for patients in the high-risk category, as Trump is, given his age and underlying conditions. But it's a show of strength that appears to be the main preoccupation for this White House.
Regularities in his lungs, are there any obesities,
until today to disclose that the president had been administered oxygen?
It's a good question.
Thank you.
I was trying to reflect the upbeat attitude that the team, the president, that his course of illness has had. I didn't want to give any information that might steer the course of illness in another direction, and in doing so, it came off that we were trying to hide something, which wasn't necessarily true. So here I have it. He is the fact of the matter is that he's doing really well. That he is responding, and as the team said, if everything continues to go well, we're going to start discharge planning back to the White House.
With just 29 days until the election, a new NBC Wall Street Journal poll shows Joe Biden's lead nearly doubling since last Tuesday's debate, now enjoying a 14-point lead among registered voters, the largest lead in this poll to date. Voters saying by 2-1 that the Democrat has the better temperament to be president. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
All right, so for more on that, let's speak now to SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease, who joins us via Skype from New York. Sherwin, very good evening to you. So as we await news on whether President Trump will go home today, we understand that the list of people connected to his orbit who are testing a positive continues to grow. What's the latest from there?
Yeah, I would refer to it, Griselda, as the drip-drip effect in terms of the number of positive diagnoses we are seeing coming out of the White House precinct. As you correctly pointed out in that introduction, the press secretary, in fact, you might as well call her President Donald Trump's chief spin, Dr. Kayleigh McEnany, has tested positive, in addition to 2 of her deputies. And of course, this just adds to a growing list of people associated with the president, with the first couple that work within the Trump orbit, including the First Lady. As I mentioned, the press secretary, Trump's campaign manager, Bill Seppian, senior advisors Hope Hicks, Kellyanne Conway, the chairperson of the Republican Party, Ronna McDaniel, Nick Luna, who's the body man to the president and aide to the president, Chris Christie, who was helping him in debate, himself has a underlying morbidity known as asthma. He has admitted himself to hospital. 3 Republican senators, 3 White House reporters, and as I say, The list continues to grow. In addition to that, now there's the speculation that the president might very well be walking out of Walter Reed and back into the White House later today. I can tell you that his doctor, Sean Connolly, is going to be updating the media at around 3 p.m. Eastern time. That's around 9 p.m. South African time. But what we're seeing from this president really is wanting to put out their narrative that he's still very much behind the wheel driving government. He has tweeted numerously today, 18 tweets at my last count, Griselda: save our Second Amendment, vote; fight the corrupt fake media, vote; pro-life, vote. So clearly, the first indication as to whether this president is doing better is whether he's tweeting or not, and I can absolutely affirm that there's been an avalanche of tweets from President Trump earlier today, Griselda.
Well, Sherwin, you already alluded to this very briefly. I mean, the possibility that the president could be discharged is creating quite a lot of chatter in medical circles. So questions around whether the information we're getting from his doctors is accurate, particularly given the cocktail of antiviral therapies he's receiving. What are you hearing?
Yeah, so you spell that out absolutely correctly. On the one side, you have doctors and members of the White House trying to give us this narrative that the president is doing very well and could be released as early as Monday. Remember, he's just gone into hospital essentially last Friday. So that timeline doesn't fit with the types of medication he's being administered. He's received an experimental antiviral cocktail as early as Friday that has not been approved yet by the FDA. Then you have the administering of remdesivir, which is this antiviral therapy, that is also a very harsh drug, a 5-day course, in addition to this steroid that provides lung support known as dexamethasone. This is heavy medication for someone that is essentially, as we're being told, doing very well. But the World Health Organization says dexamethasone is only given to patients that are critical or in severe condition. So we heard from Professor Julian Tang, a professor of respiratory sciences at the University of Leicester in the UK, and he spoke to this timeline we're being presented with. Let's listen to what he had to say, Griselda.
So it really depends on how urgently he has to get back to the White House, because if he goes back now, today, assuming that timeline is correct, so onset of symptoms just on the Saturday, today is Monday, it's only 3 days post-onset of symptoms, he's probably going to be shedding some virus still, and for at least 10 days. So if they weren't wearing masks before, and they choose to wear masks now, if they go back to the White House, including the president, they can reduce that risk from 1,000 viruses, for example, down to perhaps just 40 to 160 viruses. That's if everybody wear the mask all the time, especially when they're talking to each other.
So he's still infected and he could still infect others and will be returning to the White House. The question now remains, what sort of new protocols will the
All right, Sherwin, I'm hoping you can hear me there. We seem to have had a bit of a break in our connection there. But of course, let's move on. The trip to see his supporters, leaving quarantine, breaking everything we've been taught about isolation after a positive diagnosis. And yet the White House continuing to defend the decision and to go for a public relations exercise to greet supporters. How's that move being received?
Yeah, the real concern here is that they were in this hermetically sealed SUV. Essentially, hermetically sealed means airtight. So no air can get in and no air can get out. So the people breathing within the cabin of that vehicle were certainly at risk here. And the big concern is that the president's actions are placing his security detail at risk. The White House has defended the move, saying that Trump wanted to thank his supporters and give confidence to the American people that their commander-in-chief can get through this. This was from Kayleigh McEnany earlier. She did not, of course, respond to questions about the safety concerns about the people surrounding the president. Another White House spokesperson, Judd Deere, said that appropriate precautions were taken in the execution of this movement to both protect the president and those supporting him, including personal protective equipment. The movement was cleared by the medical team as safe to do, but subsequently we've heard some from independent doctors and people in the medical profession who are very critical about this move. And let's listen to what the president had to say before he went out to break protocol.
So it's been a very interesting journey. I learned a lot about COVID. I learned it by really going to school. This is the real school. This isn't the let's read the book school. And I get it, and I understand it. And it's a very interesting thing, and I'm going to be letting you know about it. In the meantime, we love the USA, and we love what's happening. Thank you.
So what I've learned of COVID, Griselda, is that if you are positively diagnosed, quarantine for 14 days. That is not what has happened here. The president has not been in quarantine for 14 days. He's broken that protocol. So what, in fact, he has learned from this experience remains to be seen.
Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News correspondent. Thank you very much indeed for giving us that update. Always great chatting to you.